NPR and PBS, you done. The GOP is going to defund the chronically biased NPR and PBS after a disastrous hearing, and everybody agrees. So this hearing that went viral has the CEO of NPR saying, we're not biased. We are not. And then you get GOP reps being like, why did you say that we're white supremacists? It's like, whoops. And then he goes, why did you call Trump a fascist and a racist? And she goes, whoops. Every step of the way. She just keeps saying, whoopsie. Now, NPR isn't directly funded by the U.S. government, but some funding does come from the government. Largely, I believe, through USAID's gutting and moves. It's the, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting? Yeah, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I believe they are the ones who actually get the funds. So here we go. Check this out. This is the game that they're playing. It's going to get nuked. It's extremely biased. I've got some clips for you. Let's start by showing you just how screwed up this is with this testimony from Catherine Marr that's going to make you laugh your ass off.
There's no bias on NPR.
That is not a
That is not a biased statement, ma'am. That is not even both parties wrap themselves around this song every time there's a national conflict. Lee Greenwood sings it, and he does a beautiful job. But you say there is no bias in NPR.
That is that individual's opinion, and she, of course, is entitled to it. But that is not the position of NPR.
Ma'am, you said in your opening statement that you were going to be transformative. And I believe you failed to do that. Let me ask you, why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
You don't believe anyone is a racist?
I don't start by presuming anyone is a racist, sir.
Okay.
Anyone's a racist. Like, even Burchett's like, some people are racist.
Ever conducted an internal review to assess whether conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly representative news and programming?
Congressman, what we look at is the distribution of people who listen to our work, and we can...
Blah, blah, blah. She basically then goes on to say 33% of our viewers are conservative, which is basically saying, yeah, they listen, but they know you're biased. Now, here's where it gets good. Check this out.
Mr. Berliner was suspended for the outside work policy, not for what he said, sir. In terms of federal funding, the federal funds go to support our operation of the public radio satellite system, which enables all of our local stations to be able to communicate information and broadcast, including...
As stated earlier, ma'am, funding is very fungible. It flows wherever it needs to. I don't buy that argument.
We do have
I wonder if any of the members of the committee would comment real quickly. Would you agree that Real America's Voice, Newsmax, Fox, or News Nation, if they were to see federal funds, would you all support that? Yes or no?
Look at that. Shaking his head,
Mr.
no.
Ullman?
No.
Yes or no?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Oh, here we go.
I actually don't have an opinion about that.
Ma'am?
I don't have an opinion about that, sir. That would be Congress's decision.
Thank you, Chair Lady.
Amazing. And then, of course, you've got this other video, which is hilarious. Check this one out.
America is addicted to white supremacy.
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that...
Of course she did. And that's why she was chosen as the president and CEO of NPR. Now, here's the game they're playing. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, is an American publicly funded nonprofit created in 1967 to promote and help support public broadcasting. The corporation's mission is to ensure universal access to non-commercial high-quality content and telecommunication services. It does so by distributing more than 70% of its funding to more than 1,400 locally owned public radio and television stations. Shut it down. Goodbye. This is not market. These stations are only up because the government's paying for it. Look at this. Revenue, $582 million. I got a question for each of you. What could you do with $582 million? I'd imagine it's a lot. That's amazing. The CPP's annual budget is composed entirely of annual appropriation from Congress plus interest. So they go on to mention its appropriation for 2025 was $535 million, including $10 million in interest earned. The funds go to local public television stations, television programming grants, grants to radio national programming, blah, blah, blah. Efforts to defund. Here we go. They go on to say the board composition, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. In 2004 and 2005, people from PBS and NPR complained CBP was starting to push a conservative agenda. Board members replied that they were merely seeking a balance. You know what? You're right. Maybe they were seeking a conservative agenda. Here's what we'll do. Shut the whole thing down. I don't know why the government is in the business of espousing radio messaging. Not interested. That should be private. They're going to mention the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967 requires CBP to operate with a strict adherence to objectivity and balance in all programs or series of programs of a controversial nature. It also requires it to regularly review national programming for objectivity and balance and to report on its efforts to address concerns about objectivity and balance. Back to the question asked by Rep. Burchett in the beginning, which I will play for you.
They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that...
You don't believe anyone is a right? Yes, conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly internal review to...
Have you ever conducted an internal review?
Assess whether conservative or right-leaning perspectives are fairly representative news and programming.
Congressman, what we look at is the distribution of people who listen to our work, and
what we look at? She's implying that they don't actually do an internal review to check for bias and objectivity, which is required under that law from 1967.
I can tell you, and I'm proud to tell you, that for our digital, our podcasts and our website, the distribution of Americans who come to NPR does reflect the political distribution of the nation. In fact, the distribution on our websites, 33% of folks who come are conservative versus 28% who are liberal, and the rest identify as independent. So the largest group is conservatives who come to NPR's websites.
So you believe that most Americans think President Trump is a fascist and a deranged racist?
With all due respect, my response would have been, ma'am, the question was, have you conducted an internal review, not do you attract certain audiences? If the argument she's making is that the audience shows we are not biased, I say no, because literally every conservative thinks you are biased. It's just that conservatives actually listen to news from perspectives they don't get or don't agree with. So they're saying, after the committee, Ronnie Jackson of Texas is introducing a bill to pull all government funding from chronically biased outlets NPR and PBS, which he says have been pushing Democrat talking points under the fake banner of public media. Jackson's bill, titled the No Partisan Radio and Partisan Broadcasting Services Act, or simply the NPR and PBS Act. Oh, that's really amazing. No Partisan Radio and Partisan Broadcasting Services Act. Brilliant. It would fully cut off any direct and indirect government funding to both outlets, forcing them to compete instead of being propped up by the government. This comes amid Elon Musk's sweeping cuts to wasteful government programs. The move also follows a high-intensity House DOJ subcommittee hearing in which NPR's Catherine Marr and PBS's Paula Kerger attempted to explain why their outlets still deserve public funding. They don't. During the hearing, Marr conceded that NPR botched coverage of Hunter Biden's infamous laptop, saying we made a mistake. At the time, NPR representatives publicly called the story unserious and a distraction. Here's what's funny. They put out a tweet and it said, why aren't we covering the laptop? Because it's not a story and it's a distraction. Clearly, there was enough interest in the story that warranted a response. So they're lying. She also expressed regret about remarks she made then about President Trump calling him a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath. Really. Meanwhile, Kerger's PBS was slammed for producing such programs as Real Boy, which follows a transgender character exploring sexuality. DOJ subcommittee chair Marjorie Taylor Greene bashed PBS as one of the founders of the trans child abuse industry. Following NPR and PBS leaders' testimonies, Greene called the outlets out of touch with everyday Americans, saying, I think from what we have heard here today, The American people will not continue to allow such propaganda to be funded through the federal government and their hard-earned tax dollars. I'm here for it, baby. Shut it down. How about this? Give me the money. How come they're not giving anybody else this money? They are not special. Nobody should be getting free money. I'll wrap it up there. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stay tuned. We got more segments coming up for yous. Actually, no, I think we just have Timcast IRL. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m.